Can you believe it was 2 years ago that Disney announced Disneyland Forward, their ambitious plans to expand both Disneyland and California Adventure? Not a third gate, not a new park, but more Disneyland, more DCA. The concept art provided proposed that Disney would expand the park boundaries into the Simba parking lot and the downtown Disney and Disneyland Hotel parking lots. And we said then that this is a long-term project. I was thinking 10 years at the time. And in the 2 years since, we haven't heard much from Disney at all on this. But the other day, we learned that they were conducting some community outreach efforts to educate residents in the Anaheim area about what Disney's plans are. A grassroots effort, if you will, to bring residents along. And I went to that event at Eucalyptus Park, and I actually did manage to learn a few things. And the first thing that was discussed, the first thing that was presented to me as I spoke with one of the reps there, was that the purpose of these meetups, these community outreach sessions, was to gain support from local residents by reaching out to them directly in their communities. And this was a result, this plan was a result of their near, disastrous efforts, the announcement that they made for the Eastern Gateway project. You might remember that more than 6 years ago. This project was a planned parking structure that would be put behind the hotels and restaurants along Harbor Boulevard, across the street from the Disneyland Resort, in an existing parking lot owned by Disney. And the project never happened because these businesses along Harbor objected loudly, as the project would have basically eliminated much of the foot traffic on Harbor. We'll get back to that project a little bit later, the Eastern Gateway project, as Disney has an answer to the problem that occurred back then. But one of the main problems that they had, what they realized when they announced that project, was that they just sort of sprung it on the residents and the businesses, and they said, here's our plans. Isn't it great? You guys are going to love this, without actually doing any of this, any discussion with how it might impact residents or the businesses. So for these new expansion plans, Disney is taking a very long, slow, measured approach, gathering momentum and support from the community before bringing it to the city of Anaheim for them to vote on. And that's what we've all been waiting for. That is the true purpose of Disneyland Forward, at least in terms of what we've been presented so far. To lobby the city of Anaheim to encourage them to change, to update the way that certain properties, certain parcels that Disney owns, to change the way that they are zoned. This is something that I've been reminding viewers of for the past couple of years, and it's something that I was able to confirm right away with the reps that I spoke with, that is precisely what Disneyland Forward is. They want to build on the Simba parking lot, the downtown Disney parking lot, and the Toy Story parking lot. But they can't because they're zoned right now for parking only. You can't build theme park on a parcel of land that is zoned for parking only. You can only park cars on it. And changing the way that those properties are zoned, that's not up to Disney. That is something that the city of Anaheim has got to do. And the bad news, per the reps that I spoke with on Saturday, is that we're not very close to that, not at all. They haven't even finished drafting the environmental impact report, which is necessary. That's something that you have to have done before you can even present it to the city. The EIR probably won't be finished until sometime this fall, and then they're going to present that to the city of Anaheim sometime in early 2024 for a vote. So when we said that Disneyland Forward is a long-term deal, that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. By the time this reaches the city for just a vote on zoning, it will have been 3 years since the initial announcement. And that also means that the plans and specs won't even be drafted until that vote is done. And on that topic, I was able to confirm also today that they haven't decided. They haven't done any sort of imagineering, any sort of blue sky work on what it is. They don't even know what they want to build. They don't know what they want to build. There's no concept art. There's no schematics. They're waiting for the city of Anaheim before they even begin that process. And that alone, plans and specs, that could take a couple years as well. So that's the bad news. Probably 2 or 3 years for plans and specs, and then another 5 years probably to build it at least, right? If it takes them 5 years to build Tron, how long would it take them to build 2 new lands? We're talking maybe 2033. Not 2033. Now, having said that, the good news is that Disney is I believe, on the right track. This is far better than them trying to simply exert their will on the city and on the residents of Anaheim, especially in the political climate that they exist in right now, where there's a microscope on the Disney company. They are very much trying to be the good guy in this process, and I, for one, appreciate that. They need more of that. They need more of that being the good guy approach towards this kind of thing, towards expansion or any sort of big project. Really, anything. We'll take positive Disney news anytime we can get it, any chance we can get it. More good news is that in the time it's taken them to get to the point where we have today, the kinds of things that they're trying to do have become more commonplace, throughout the city, throughout the county, in a lot of urban areas. There are several examples in the immediate area. There's the outlets at the block. They put in a big old apartment building right there. And then over at the Anaheim main place, outside of the mall, they've are in the process of building another apartment building and a parking structure. Both of those existing or were being built in pre-existing parking lots. So that bodes well for Disney getting approval from the city of Anaheim, because it's in vogue right now. It's the thing to do. So on that note, assuming that Disney does get a positive vote from the city of Anaheim, what are they going to build? Have we learned anything about what they might actually build at Disneyland Forward? Actually, we have learned a little bit. Not specific attractions or even lands, mind you, but what kinds of things they might be willing or able to build at Disneyland Forward. Namely, nothing outdoors. They're looking to build only indoor attractions, at least along the perimeter, along the part of the Disneyland Forward property that runs parallel with Walnut Avenue. And that's actually a question that I've asked, in previous videos. I've discussed this. There are very specific noise ordinances that Disney would have to comply with. Right on the other side, 300 feet from the perimeter, from the border of Disneyland Forward, is a residential zone, apartment buildings. I mean, you could throw a rock, literally, and hit an apartment building from the Disneyland Forward site. And there are strict noise ordinances there, and that would absolutely prohibit them from building anything like an outdoor roller coaster, for example. You can build a roller coaster. They did build a roller coaster in Quitacoaster, or California Screamin', along Catella Avenue. That was fine, because on the other side of that street, on the other side of Catella, not residential, hotels and retail. So don't look for roller coasters along the perimeter of Walnut Avenue. Look for attractions that are, in a show building, which is probably most likely anyway. It seems like that's what all they build these days are show building type attractions. But probably nothing, don't expect anything along the size or scale of Rise of the Resistance or Runaway Railway. I don't think the lots are big enough to support both a show building and land around it to support that actual attraction. You could easily build the show building, but that would be close to filling up that space, I believe. You wouldn't have enough room to build, let's say, the rest of Toontown in that space, I don't think. At least not if you build something enormous like Rise. And while we're at it, go ahead and disabuse yourself of the notion that they might be building Avatar in this space. Not because it's a bad idea or it doesn't belong there, but because they've already made plans for Avatar. And if they've already made plans, then they're not for the Disneyland Forward space. They're for some other space, because that space can't be built on yet. They haven't even voted on changing the zoning, so you can't even plan. They've said before, we haven't planned anything. Nothing is on the table. There's no, Imagineering being done or anything like that for that space at Disneyland Forward. That means no Avatar. So that covers the park expansion side of things. What about the Toy Story parking lot, which is also very heavily involved in the new plans? The same logic applies as it did back when they first announced this. Most likely a Disney Springs type situation there, a mix of hotels and retail, and even like a small theming or themed experience. Not themed park, but a themed experience. Something for entertainment. And I did also confirm that this new space, this Toy Story space, would be in addition to Downtown Disney. That is to say, it's not going to be, they're going to have both. You're going to have Downtown Disney and the Disney Springs-like space at the Toy Story parking lot. Speaking of the Toy Story parking lot, something that always comes up every time we start talking about park expansion, especially as it relates to the Toy Story parking lot, every time this comes up, people always bring up Garden Walk, as in Disney should buy Garden Walk, and then you can connect everything. You've got the Disneyland Resort, and then you've got the Garden Walk space, connect that to Toy Story parking lot, bada bing, bada boom, easy peasy. That would be beautiful, wonderful. Let's do this. Let's get it done. And for about the last 5 or 6 years, I've been saying That's not going to happen for a variety of reasons, but just understand Disney buying the Garden Walk and including that in their development Disney can't just up and decide they're going to do that, for one thing. It's not just up to them. But anyway, I brought it up with the reps just because I knew that would come up in this conversation. So I brought it up with the reps. I asked them, was there any discussion? Is there discussion? Do you have any plans for the Garden Walk? And I was advised, and I'm going to try to paraphrase here. I was advised that the Garden Walk is the owners of the Garden Walk. They're pretty happy with what they have, and they don't have no intentions to sell, not to Disney or anybody else. And this got an audible guffaw from me and a few others. The way she put it, I got a good chuckle out. They're really happy, those guys. They're really happy with the Garden Walk and how it's going, which I don't believe that. So I asked a couple different ways, actually. And the rep there was doing her best to answer. I don't know if politically correct is the right way. She was just hesitant to give like an honest, truthful answer. And it's not that I hold that against her. She was perfectly delightful and impressive in every way during our conversation. She is a credit to the Disney company. Thought she was great. But I just don't think that they want to talk about, or there's some other factor here with the Garden Walk that we're not ever going to know why that's not going to happen. Just know the Garden Walk is not going to happen, not for Disney. And hopefully this can put that conversation to bed. I doubt it. We've been talking about it for years, like I said, and it's going to keep on being a topic of discussion. Okay, so what else? Next. Okay, so speaking of Garden Walk, Toy Story parking lot, what about the Eastern Gateway project? I alluded to that earlier in this conversation, and we did get some information on that, which is quite interesting. The reason why the original plan never happened was because that original plan had guests going through bag check. The bubble was on the Garden Walk side of Harbor Boulevard, not where it is now on the Disneyland side of Harbor, but on the opposite side of the street. Guests would park in the parking structure, the new one that they were going to build, have their bags checked on that side, and then cross a bridge over Harbor Boulevard and then enter Disneyland Resort, having already been through bag check. The bridge and everything over there is still in the Disney bubble, which pretty much eliminates like a good half or more of the foot traffic on Harbor Boulevard for all of those hotels and restaurants. Let's say, for example, you're staying at the Castle Inn and Suites down there on Harbor Boulevard, and you're going to walk to the park. Normally, today, you would walk all that length along Harbor Boulevard until you got to that actual straight cross the street and go to Disneyland. If they were to install the Eastern Gateway and put bag check on that side of the street, guests would make it as far as what the Anaheim Inn, and then they would cross the street, and then they would divert into the old Simba lot. They would go behind all those restaurants and hotels on Harbor and go through the bag check on that side of the street, skipping everything else that's on Harbor. Now, that conversation can be divisive, but I do think that Disney did the right thing by not pursuing, not continuing with that project. It would have been bad optics for them to just ignore everybody else, ignore all the other residents, ignore all the other businesses. It's a big community. Disney wants to be a part of the community, not, there's Disney and then there's the rest of you guys and screw you. I really don't think they want to do that. They don't want to be that kind of company. But with this new plan, Disney does have a solution. It's pretty simple. It's pretty elegant. The new plan would eliminate the bag check on the Garden Walk side of Harbor Boulevard. Bag check would remain on the Disneyland side. Guests would park in that structure, and then they would cross the bridge over Harbor Boulevard still. They would still build that bridge, but they wouldn't be in the bubble. And that means that guests could go up and down, stairs or a ramp or an elevator or, a combination of all three of those things. There would be traffic allowed onto and off of the bridge before entering the bubble, the Disneyland bubble. This allows all those businesses, all those hotel guests to do their normal walk along Harbor to get into the park and not have to go all the way around in order to go through bag check. Simple plan, elegant. All it cost them was I don't know if it's a small space. I think the intent was they wanted to expand DCA. They wanted to expand the borders of the back lot into that transportation center that exists today where all the buses drop people off. That would have been a possible, who knows, maybe an expansion area for DCA. So the Eastern Gateway is still on the table with Disneyland Forward, and I think that covers everything as far as Disneyland Forward, as far as what we learned at this event and where we stand today with Disneyland Forward. So to summarize, pretty much nothing has happened in the 2 years since they announced Disneyland Forward. We're about a year away from a vote by the City Council. Disney has not begun any kind of Imagineering or blue sky on what they possibly might build, attractions or lands in the Disneyland Forward space. And they won't, not until they get a positive vote from the City Council. Don't expect any outdoor roller coasters, and don't expect anything to involve the Garden Walk other than going around it when you try to go to Disneyland. So it's probably not the best news that you guys heard as far as Disneyland Forward goes, but you know, in spite of that, I still feel really good about where we're at with this. I still feel very optimistic about Disneyland Forward, especially when you consider it's an opportunity for Disneyland to build something from scratch, from the ground up, which we don't get a lot of opportunity for that. And when they have done that, they have done pretty well. Like Galaxy's Edge is great, and I think that they can do something great in that space, given the opportunity, given the the zoning updates from the city of Anaheim. I feel good about it. So with that covered, I got a couple other things that I want to touch on real quick before we go. In a recent news video from the park, we talked about Disney selling Magic Keys again. They put those back up for sale. It was great news. That was just a couple days ago. In that time, in just a couple days, all but the Inspire Key have sold out. The Believe Key, the Enchant Key, and the Imagine Key are all sold out. The only Magic Key left for sale right now is the Inspire Key. And that fact furthers my theory that that is precisely the kind of Magic Key holders that Disney wants in the parks. They want more Inspire Keys in the parks. They want guests who go often, who spend a little money, hopefully during the week, typically during the week. They want guests that mostly go on a whim. They want pass holders who go on a whim rather than planning ahead. And that is pretty descriptive of the Inspire Key holder compared to the other keys. The Believe Key is kind of like the Inspire Key, but the Imagine Key and the Enchant Keys, those guys, they're planning well ahead to book their visits because they've only got a few chances, a few opportunities to book, and they take them when they can get them. Otherwise, they're never going to go. I actually talk about this a little bit more in our State of Disneyland report that's coming up later on, I think on Monday. So look for a conversation on that topic and what Disney's been doing with the reservation system. They're still working with that. They're still messing with that. They're still manipulating or using the reservation system as a means to manipulate who's coming to the parks and when. Stay tuned to our State of Disneyland report on that. And then lastly, Disney has a new After Dark event planned, Pride Night. Disneyland has formally entered the LGBTQIA conversation. And by that I mean, in the past, their involvement has been unofficial. That is, vis-a-vis Gay Days, which that's a third-party event. They don't have any direct, involvement in that. They sell the merch, but all the event itself is not managed by Disney. But on June 13th and June 15th, Disney will host an after-hour event celebrating the LGBTQIA community. We're looking at a Pride Night cavalcade, Pride Night dance club along the rivers of America, country line dancing at the Golden Horseshoe, and of course, themed photo ops and event-only food. I have no idea what a Pride Night is going to look like at Disneyland compared to other After Dark events, but I'm going to find out. We're planning to attend on June 13th, assuming we get a ticket. They go on sale first to Magic Key holders on April 18th, no earlier than 9 a.m., then to the general public on April 20th. And there you go, guys. That's our news update for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed. Follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. And if you like our show and want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/freshbaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. Fresh Baked.